success back then. And I put the major culprit down to a little phrase called Southeast Australia. People were allowed to label wine Southeast Australia, which basically meant, with the exception of Western Australia, grapes from all the wine growing regions were allowed to go into this wine.
And almost the whole continent, right?
Which meant
New Zealand wasn't making.
Which meant that somebody from the Yarra Valley or Mornington could produce a Chardonnay, like you said, or you could go buy grapes from the MIA or from the Riverina and have the same tag on it, Chardonnay. It made Australian wines cheap. Why were they cheap? Because they were coming from cheap areas. The fruit was cheap. It enabled people here to understand, oh, it's a Chardonnay, so I can drink a wine because it's a Chardonnay, rather than, oh, it's a wine from Chablis, you know. How many times have I been told by people, I hate Chardonnay, but I love Chablis? It's like,
it's not even a table,
it's crazy.
Using regionality as a badge to identify a wine has its own pitfalls. I mean, how many people do we all know who think all Chablis is wonderful or all Rioja is wonderful, when we all know patently that that isn't true, and other regions get tarred for being
But what you do know though, is that Chardonnay from Chablis has a particular character usually, so it tends to be less ripe, a little more apple.
Chablis maybe, but I've just come back from 3 days tasting in Rioja, where we were tasting 70 wines every morning, and the variation in Rioja is huge. It's very difficult. I mean, even within Chablis, you know, some are oaked, some are unoaked. Riper vintages, you get more fruit. Cooler vintages, you get more of that kind of steely character. I think,
unfortunately, you need the knowledge on the producer, and I can say that for Courton Chardonnay. My favourite producer is Bono D'Amatro because it's fine, minerally, linear. You can get a Faverly or a Tolabo, which are rich and oaky, and I'd never pick them as Courtons. I'd pick them as Chassans or something like that, or Merceau. That's in a very famous vineyard, one vineyard, you know, and you've got that variation. So unfortunately, wine always comes down to your knowledge.
So would you be happy to have Mornington Peninsula as the main on your label?
I would
take on the main Mornington Peninsula as being stronger, Chardonnay being the smallest.
Or even on the back label, the grape variety on the back label.
Well, if you look at our label, the biggest name is the vineyard. Right, we've made that point. I would love to have that like Mornington Peninsula, and the reason for that is that while I totally accept there's a lot of variation, the variation within Mornington is a lot less than the variation within Chardonnay in the whole country. So it's a subset of Chardonnay within the country. Therefore, I would embrace that, because I want people to understand that when they drink this wine, they're not drinking a Chardonnay, they're drinking a Mornington.
And that,
it is far more important.
I was going to say, and that then adds an irony to the statement, I like Chablis but I don't like Chardonnay, because anything that's labelled up as Chardonnay from then on, you know, down the road would be the stuff that has no place or no identity, and Chablis is obviously the...
It comes back to, if you accept that philosophy... Here it is.
So guys,
how are you?
Carry on, I'm staying a lot. Hello, Alex.
It comes back to, once you accept that point, you can now say, well, I actually drink wines that I like, therefore I'm no longer varietally focused. So I'm not drinking, I'm never going to be an anything but Chardonnay person, but I would happily drink a Mosel, and that's a Riesling.
Well, this is Marcel Dice, you know, this is what he does, you know, he has it's the vineyard site which is to him, and then whatever he happens to have planted in the vineyard goes into the wine. So there's 5 or 6 different grape varieties that go into each wine, but the focus of each wine is the site rather than any kind of varietal.
Yeah. Well, vintage Tannin is a very good example of somebody who focuses on that as well.